Steve here with ICRPG behind the DM screen, and we have a very special guest to the channel today, the one, the only, Hankerin Ferinale, the creator of Runehammer Games and ICRPG. Welcome to the channel.
Howdy, Steve. What's going on? Good to be here.
Things are good. So we're both from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. How long have you been there, and what do you like about living in the city?
I've been here 3 years, and I like the weather is the best weather on the planet, and the sense of humor in Philly is positively ridiculous. It is. It's the only city I think I've been to that actually has like running humor about itself.
Probably true. Probably true. Where were you from before?
I lived in a little mountain town out in Washington State before this, so it couldn't be more opposite.
No, for sure, for sure. Okay. Well, before we get into ICRPG itself, are you currently playing a campaign that you're willing to tell us about?
I am, yeah. I'm in a few at the moment. So one of them is the ending of Hard Suit. So we had some crazy stuff with, these kind of crab mecha suits and this giant ship that was going to fold space, but it was experimental. It was going to like destroy a whole mountain range, and they were trying to stop that. So that one's almost done. And then I've got three sort of parallel games that are all in my new world, the North Holds, with different groups. And one of those I'm a player, and two of them I'm a GM. They're all in the same world, but they're all like a few hundred miles apart from each other.
Huh.
So we're kind of in parallel lines, but none of those, players are intermixing or anything yet. But that's kind of, they're starting to dream about it.
Yeah.
And their main struggle is kind of battling the former players from a year and a half ago, who one of them became supremely evil at the end of the campaign and became the sort of big villain of the next chapter of the campaign.
That sounds pretty cool. Are your groups pretty old? Like, how long have they been going on? Are they the same people for years, or they got some new blood in there, or a combination?
Combination, yeah. So most of them are relative beginners to D&D in general. But my newest group is like totally like wet behind the ears new, like complete tabla rasa kind of level. So that's really fun. But then, yeah, the other sort of main group, which is well known on YouTube, the Dirty Jobs group, they have like real cohesion. They're almost like sort of a band at this point. So they really stick together. But even they were pretty new to it, 3 years ago.
Cool.
But now they're just all hardened veterans. They've almost checked every box of like D&D life at this point.
So do you in general like playing with newbies or oldies, or doesn't matter as long as they're good on the game, right?
Yeah, I think it's like it's less about what you know and more about like your energy level. Um, Unfortunately, energy level can be hard to control just in your own physical being. But I do think people that come the most like psyched to the table are always my favorite. So it's always like make sure everyone is like well caffeinated, never play hungover. Never play if you've been playing like the last 3 nights and you're just like worn out. So I think it's actually like fatigue is more important than almost any other factor for people that I like to play with. I like a lot of energy.
Yeah, that's cool. That's yeah, it's I'm like I said, delving into it, and definitely I think yeah, the more creative and the more invested people are, for sure, it just makes it good. So yeah, that's awesome. So when again, this is an interview about ICRPG,
Yeah.
but there's a bunch of other stuff I want to ask you for sure too. But what was the biggest hurdle that you ran into while you were creating or launching or whatever, as you look back kind of over the spectrum of ICRPG and its creation, what was the biggest difficulty you had with it, if there were any?
Man. I guess there would kind of be two. One would be like naysaying, both from other people, but more so from your own like subconscious, your own mind. I think that especially in the sort of the boom town time of RPGs, which I think we're still in, there can be a lot of that's already been done, and does the world need another one of these kind of thinking in your brain. And every time your brain says those kind of things to you, it's wrong. Just don't listen to that. There's always room for more voices. But that was early on, that was a big deal in my head of just like, what would be the point? Like nobody's going to notice like another fantasy RPG that uses a D20. Like who cares? Like come on, it's just homebrew. So that was a bit of a like a mind shift for me.
Yeah.
And I would say that took longer than any other part of ICRPG. I was working on something that resembled this like since college. So we're talking more than 20 years. But always the thing that would stop me would be this like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like what's the point? Like it's another statue of like a Greek guy with muscles. Like who cares? There's a million of those statues. So that was the big one. I think the second one is probably the one that most commonly hinders creators out there who are trying to publish, which is sort of really facing the music with the reader and
Mm.
accepting that the reader and the player in some case they're kind of one, right? The reader and the player are almost one person. That the way things impact them, there's nothing more important in your efforts than the way things are impacting the reader.
Yeah.
And for the creative person or the person who's put a lot of effort into something, it can be really, really a difficult truth to face. If you've got this masterful piece of music, as a designer, and you give it to a reader, and right away they see the dumbest little error, and they don't notice all this incredible beauty. They hit that thorn on the rose, and they can't go
Mm-hmm.
past it because it gave them a little sting. And you, as the writer and the designer, like just have to accept it. You just have to be like,
Yep.
changing that right now. I'm fixing that right now,
Yep.
rather than being like, we'll just keep reading. You'll see, you'll see, you'll see. And I think that's a major like step forward for all creative people, is accepting that like the reader's reaction at face value right away without like
Yeah.
explaining yourself. Just being like, oh my God, you're right. That typo is so distracting and it's on like
Yeah.
the second page.
Yeah.
You didn't even get to the fourth page, which is where things get cool and like, and you basically you up. So you need to fix it. So I
Yep.
think for me as a very like assertive creative person, that was really hard at first to really get used to. Now I'm really, really quite thick-skinned with things. So it's like as things are coming together, it's kind of like I always say, like it's like pulling down your pants and running down the street. Once you kind of get used to it and everybody knows you're like the village lunatic,
Uh-huh.
it's not a big deal anymore. Like you are really happy to have readers like spotting the dumbest mistakes,
Sure.
because
Sure.
that's how you make things great. That's how you make more readers smoothly come into your space, so to speak, is by just accepting that. But man, in the beginning, it is tough.
Yeah, it is. That's I've worked on a few board game designs. We call that breaking the game. And as much as you hate that, because as a creator, you're putting a little piece of yourself out there. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Yeah, and not just a little piece. It's a pretty deep personal piece.
Yeah, and right away they're like, where am I supposed to put my meeples? And you're just like, ah.
Yep, but the people have spoken, as it were.
Yep.
That's what happens. But yeah, that's so as you were kind of coming through the whole ICRPG thing, what would you say is your fondest innovation? I mean, obviously, there are other systems and things like that, but like what's kind of your baby, with ICRPG? Like, I mean, you got many. I've been reading through the book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of what's in there is not necessarily apart from a million other games. Things like timers and things like dice types being sort of segmented out from each other and sort of, put in little stables instead of blending together. And a lot of those ideas exist in many, many games. I think probably the one that really kind of put me on the map. I mean, timers was a big one, but you can kind of put that in any game. That I feel like that put me on the map. Also, that was just born of sheer fatigue. That really, for us, changed our table, was doing a single target.
Hmm.
And so I swear, 20% of every session was spent asking the question, what's his armor class or what's the
Yeah.
DC on this save or on this roll? And like, how hard is it for me to jump over this ditch? And then there's also the cognitive fuel moment of the GM going, Now these are all super tiny moments. They're each one is
Yeah.
maybe what, 3 seconds long. But if you look at a session, the
Yep.
number of times that question is asked is bonkers, and for all levels of experience.
Yeah.
It's constant. Just like what's his armor class again? You just
Uh,
attacked him last round, but for some reason there's so much going on in a good game. You're asking almost every single turn, and so I think it was really one night we were doing a sort of a marathon type session. So maybe we're into 6-7 hours or so, which for us was kind of a marathon.
yeah.
And I think just out of sheer fatigue, I'm just like, what was that last roll? Like 13? It's 13. Like, let's just live on 13. And then in our final scene, it's like 3 in the morning. And I was like, you know what? That 13, screw you guys. It's all 16 now. Like everything we're gonna do. And there was kind of a bit of a blood draining moment, but then we realized like we ripped through a bunch of stuff in the next hour
Yeah.
before it finally descended into the ending.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, and I think
that's
that
great.
really that was huge, and that was before really ICRPG was even a thought. That's when we were just playing 5e, and 5e was brand new.
Yeah.
And we kind of bumbled into that just from sheer tiredness.
Yeah.
And but boy, once we did that, there was no going back. No player would tolerate asking what the DC of a Constitution save when you're holding your breath is. Like, why would it be a different number than in slightly shallower, warmer water? Like, do we really need that much detail?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it was almost like just bogged down in minutia. That's what drove me to ICRPG in the first place.
Yeah, and some people love that minutia and absolutely rock on. I don't think there's any part of my sort of thesis that says it's better. It
Right.
just arises from fatigue.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. It's a good point. So here's a fun one. One of our viewers said, I read you have a dog named Chutney. What kind of dog is your Chutney?
Chutney is a Boston Terrier. He's 2 years old, and he's like the most disciplined, most focused being I think I've ever known.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
He's
So
like
so
John Wick, only he's a dog.
so here's the follow-up question to it. If Chutney were an ICRPG player, what world, life form, and starting ability would he be?
Well, I would have to go with he would be in like Vigilante City, and he would be John Wick character, and his starting milestone would be like something like an intellect of pure will, and somehow like his like he never he's very singular of purpose. So I'm not sure how we would put those in. Maybe he always goes first, no matter what the initiative roll is. There we go.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
he is just
Awesome.
of sheer function. Like he's just absolute. And when the task is complete, he just sits perfectly still.
Nice.
The dog's amazing.
That's cool. That is very cool. So how about you? What is your person, do you play, like, so you're in a few campaigns, do you play the same character? Do you play, if you have a choice, do you play a certain type of character, or do you try to
Yeah, I
branch
mean,
out?
well, like everyone, I'm all over the board, but I do have a tendency to be these characters that people know me for, kind of like slightly bumbly characters who are usually like too old,
Mm-hmm.
whose greatest deeds are in their past,
Ah,
but who also almost all my characters, even like my bestial or my brutal characters, have like absolute moral compasses. That's
okay.
something I'm really known for in all my games, is like I have absolutely no patience or tolerance of evil or wrongdoing in any form,
Yeah.
not even on the small scale. I
Yeah.
just can't stand it, both as a human, as a player, and as a character. And I have like this very absolute kind of play style where no form of wrongdoing can endure, even for any moment that we can make it stop.
Uh-huh.
And so I
Huh.
am definitely known for that. It can be a real inconvenience to groups.
Now,
Yeah.
does that track into your personal life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know exactly why, but that is just sort of always been part of my sort of thing. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's hey, it it keeps it true. I know one of the things in 5e is kind of these things where breaking character causes you can get penalized for that.
Right.
I haven't read through the entire thing on ICRPG yet. If there's a sort of thing, you have the hero tokens, as like, hey, you really played in character or whatever, but don't know if there's a breaking character rule or not.
After all these years of playing, I can't say that there is ever an easy solution to stuff like that,
Yeah.
or an easy solution to like betrayal in characters.
Mm,
It is a heady experience when a player, either from player motivations or thinking they're going along with character motivations for either reason, somehow betrays the group.
yeah.
It's extremely heady. There is almost like it can really just those people will like just never play again. It's like it's so intense, and it goes to show how much like
Yeah.
real fiber is underneath the game. So
Yeah.
yeah, like popping out of character or betraying your friends in a lot of times it's done like out of whimsy, like not a big deal, almost like a nihilistic humor kind of point of
Hmm.
view. But then that betrayal like stings these players who've been through so much together.
Yeah.
And then you'll notice like the players aren't like texting each other for like 2 weeks. And you're like, is
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. People can get pretty serious for sure.
Yeah, so
You're invested.
popping out of character is a big deal. So, but usually, yeah, I play like a guy who has almost no stats, just a really high constitution and like a paddle and a fishing pole, and
Hmm.
that's kind of it. It's just more about like your personal worth rather than a bunch of gears and gadgets.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, we so I used to play back in the early 80s and then got out of it for like 35 years and recently reconnected with all my old buddies from the early 80s, and we're all scattered
Cool.
across the country and even some other countries, and we're going to try to pull together a one shot. And we haven't seen each other for 3 decades. And one of the things that I decided to do was talk to the group about your character. Instead of trying to play somebody like a role play, make your character more like an avatar. Like that character would behave the way that you would behave in that situation. So we kind of
Mhm.
get to re-know each other. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like, oh, okay, I didn't realize he's got that streak in him, or oh, he's pretty funny, because
yeah.
we're adults now, and so it'd be kind of neat to see the real person, but in avatar kind of form on the table. So,
I mean, I think that's good advice across the board. I think sometimes there's an oddity with role playing where people maybe use it to sort of play out a forbidden self,
mm-hmm.
and it never goes well. It's
Yeah,
weird. It gives people like a weird micro cringe. Like what do they call it? It was a few years ago. Oh, nano aggression.
yeah, right.
You get these little nano aggressions from this person who's kind of playing out like a dark half of their psyche or something, like right in front of everyone. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, holy crap, like you're
Yeah,
really nice in real
yeah,
life. Could you just be like that instead?
yeah. You need to stuff that back in the
Yeah,
vault.
this is not therapy, like back in the hole.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Well, I get this question a lot, so I wanted to pose it to you because you've got a lot of experience in this. What would you say makes a good GM?
Oh man, sheesh. Well, again, I would go back to a bit of a broken record, but I think that the first thing is not even a skill. It's just being energetic.
Yeah,
I really think, especially as the GM, you're kind of the host, even if you're someone in else's house
yeah,
or you're in public or whatever, you're still kind of the host. And if your energy isn't high, it it will be very hard to pay attention. It can be kind of flat, so to speak.
mm-hmm.
So I really think this is an unsung quality of a great GM, is that they're just absolutely psyched to be there,
Yeah.
to be looking at the funny looking faces of their friends, and to be in that kind of moment and be that dork. I think that would be the highest level property. And then after that, I think would just be to be wow. Well, you know, this could be a different answer depending on the week.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I think something that I haven't really brought up enough publicly that I want to start focusing on for like a GM property is this idea of like sort of someone who can take you through the Boy Scout or Girl Scout experience of D&D. Meaning there are like 50 merit badges
Mm-hmm.
that you can get in D&D, and we all know on sort of an intuitive level, even beginners know kind of what they are, right? There's like the
Yep.
lowest level ones would be like that moment when you roll this sort of celebratory critical success. That would be one of the most fundamental ones. Dying is one of them, like losing a character.
Yeah.
Fighting a dragon is one of them. Getting lost in some kind of sandboxy market role play morass. That's one of them. Doing some kind of gigantic dungeon that takes more than 2 or 3 sessions. That's one of them. And there's all these little different experiences, or the one where there's like real fear or real emotion is felt at the table. That's another like merit badge.
Yeah.
And I think great GMs openly talk about these things as journeys we're going to take together.
Yeah.
And when you just boil away all the behold and all the wow, prepare for revelation kind of mindset, and you just put it like you're just in scouts. I see, at least in my experience, I see a lot of sitting up straight at that moment. There's a lot of like, yeah, I want those merit badges. I want to. Another way that we put it at our table is like years from now, if I do a good job as GM, the topic of D&D is going to come up one night at a bar somewhere, and you're going to be able to legitimately boast about having done the realest things you can do in D&D.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna take you through those things. So it may seem jarring, but we're just gonna wrap up that last storyline, and we're gonna head right over to this part of the world. And there's like a dragon on the rampage, and you guys are nowhere near ready to fight it, but we're gonna work our way into it. And that way, years from now, you can say you fought a dragon in D&D.
Yeah. That's
With
so
no explanation.
you think the badges will ever make it into here?
I think I don't know, but I don't know if anything else will go into ICRPG. It's really like bursting a little bit.
Yeah.
It's very, very full. But the idea of those, I'm so about it right now. I'm like on the brink of actually making the badges. Like you can order a set.
Yeah.
Like I'm feeling that cheesy about it. I think it's really a
I
fun
think you
way of
should.
describing D&D.
Hey, there are plenty of folks like myself that would buy them. And also, I was wondering too, is there a hero coin for sale anywhere? I've been looking.
Oh no, because my competitors make too good of ones.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, like Norse Forge makes the sickest coins. They're $10 each, so it's a little bit expensive to get the whole set. I think
Gotcha.
there's 12 different ones, but they're big, they're super like textural, and they have like gems in them, and they're so bad
Yeah.
that our table has come to just truly adore them. And they
Yeah.
even have like memories attached to them and stuff.
Oh,
Like
that's cool.
they're such relics. Like here I have them all in my box, but like they're huge like
Oh,
this.
yeah, that's cool.
And they weigh a ton, and they're just awesome.
Yeah, nice and
So I don't want to
beefy.
compete with these guys. They did too good of a job.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. That sounds cool. That's very cool. So, yeah, just another question. I've got a whole compilation from people that want to know from
Oh,
the creator. So,
whew,
what
okay,
advice?
okay, buckle in.
Yeah, buckle in. So, what advice would you give to somebody coming to ICRPG from 5e?
Um, I guess the first thing to see would be to break this misconception that promised evolution equals longevity.
Hmm.
So many people, I think, cling to fifth edition, and in less degree to Pathfinder, believing that a large catalog of things for players to hope for equals longevity in a game.
Hmm.
I think it does feel that way in the beginning. It feels like, wow, there's like 10 levels of stuff for me to dream about here. And then you come to ICRPG and you're like, my character's so simple. and most of my progression is based on gear, like that's
Hmm.
it. How are these games ever going to last? I guess this could be good for one night, but I think the first misconception to drop is that one,
Huh.
is that there is just as much complexity and rule bending and growth and expansion, and if not even more in some ways, but it isn't promised in fixed paths.
Yeah. Well,
And I
that
think
makes
if you let go of that concept of a fixed path and see growth as a very sort of wavy line,
yeah.
then you let go of that and you realize that longevity in a game has almost nothing to do with player builds, as they're called. I think
Yeah.
that's just basically all talk.
Yeah. No, that's
I
a
think
good
the
point.
longevity of a game comes from the social knitting of the group.
Yeah.
And as long as the game is intact and works over time, those groups endure, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's the number one misconception of 5e people coming over, is that somehow they see a game that's less rigid as less complex and therefore less enduring. And I think that is just flatly wrong.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And as I've been delving kind of more into it, I've had a lot of folks ask me, oh, well, what is ICRPG, because they hadn't heard of it. And I'm referring to it less and less as like, well, there's a rule book. I more say it's a guideline,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um,
Yeah,
something to springboard off of,
yeah,
like guiding principles kind of thing,
and a
rather.
mindset. I mean, it's a mindset. It's also like the loot tables. The loot tables in ICRPG, to toot my own horn a little bit, are, I don't know why these like cut and dry tables aren't in more books.
Yeah.
So if you're playing 5e, for example, and your GM is a little bit flat-footed and you come across a treasure chest, or you loot a knight that you defeated and you wonder, what does this guy have on him? There really is not a super clean, centralized, easy way to just roll up loot.
Hmm.
It's all these, like, the letter tables and everything in D&D. So it's like a C class treasure, and then you go into the sub table of that, and
Yeah.
already you're tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I do think that is one of the actual mechanical artifacts you get in ICRPG that I would really plant my flag on. So it
Yeah.
is a mindset, but those tables, there's, what, like 1,100 items or something in there
Hmm.
that can be so easily rolled up. Anytime you tell a player to roll a D100 for an item, they light up with glee.
Yep.
And that is a core part of what makes it work for the GM as well as the player, because the GM doesn't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
It could be anything from like a falsified copy of the Necronomicon to like a pulley,
Hmm.
you know.
Right. Right.
And that fun and that surprise, I think, is a big thing that makes the engine of ICRPG run. And I think when you see that engine in play and let go a little bit, I think you see the longevity again return. Like you
Yeah.
realize how huge this sort of throw is on it.
Yeah.
Um, Instead of thinking, okay, you're a paladin, so you're third level, I definitely need to give you that sun sword we've been talking about.
Hmm.
And it's all very kind of like, because when I was first level, I really wanted to have it. And that's very, to me, how 5e feels.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, which isn't better or worse. I think it's just, this is a misconception that if you let go of it coming into kind of my crazy world, the feeling of freedom really is awesome. A little scary at first, but awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. Well, is there anything you'd do differently looking over the history of the game?
Oh man. um, I don't know, not really. I don't know if I even really think that way.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
mean, it would be nice to have, business wise, more of this and less of that. It would be, sometimes it can be like a lonely path, being like super independent.
Yeah.
It would be neat to work in teams and stuff again. I do miss kind of working in teams like I did back in the video game industry.
Yeah.
But as far as like the game, I mean, I'm really proud of what happened. It would be cool to have more like viral access to the world, but at the same time, like, I really believe in its growth has been organic and authentic. It's never been pushed on the world or like advertised in a way, or You
Yeah.
know, I've never paid anyone to endorse it or sponsor it in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So would it be cool if it, was bigger or more popular or something? I guess, but at the same time, it's kind of cool how it's grown just on sort of the family vibe.
Yeah.
It gives it a really a knit feeling in the community that doesn't feel overly, it hasn't grown overly fast.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
it's
it's been refreshing for a lot of folks, myself included. So thanks.
yeah, so I guess no, I wouldn't really change anything. It's been a really fun ride, and I'm really grateful for it too. It's not easy to do like a full-time job on
Sure.
this hobby, like by yourself.
Yeah.
So I owe all that to the word of mouth and to all the people out there. So
Yeah.
it's been really a blast. It's been a lot of work, but it's been fun.
That's awesome. All right. So here's a light one. Philly, known for its great food.
Mm,
What's your
absolutely.
favorite game night snack?
Game night snack. Well,
Yep.
usually I get like a 4 pack of like high quality beer. So but back in the day we would drink, like cases of low quality beer. Don't do that. That's bad for D&D. It's better to have just a few very good beers. I always have that for D&D,
Mm-hmm.
rather than a zillion. And then as far as snack goes to go with it, well, about we almost always do halftime OG pizza. OG is a pizza place that's right up here on Frankfurt,
Uh-huh.
and they are the epitome of legit. I know everybody has their pizza opinions in Philly, but
Yep.
we've kind of almost made a ritual out of like halftime OG. So when we're at a halfway point of a session, no matter what time it may be,
Uh-huh.
we get like 3 well-done pies in the house and
Nice.
sit around and talk for a while. So I know it's cliche to have pizza with D&D, but I mean it just works.
Hey, I'm in South Carolina and I miss Philly pizza, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yep,
And
for
it's
sure.
so good you really don't even really want to talk about it because
Yeah.
people think you're making stuff up.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I believe me, I fully understand. So,
Yep.
yep, yep. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to tell the viewers?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think ICRPG is definitely like has legs left in it. Modifius has been an awesome publisher, and they just continue to like they just have a very rock steady delivery mechanism to get it out there. I guess my message to index card RPG players out there would be to come back around, and we really have opened up the floodgates on doing community content now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, we all got a little weirded out by the events in January with the OGL and everything, but I've always had like a super relaxed go ahead and make money off ICRPG kind of. I don't even
Hmm.
know if there's any real legal text. I mean, it's
Right.
just like be nice, like don't take my stuff. And even if
Nice.
you did, it honestly wouldn't. I kind of welcome. I don't know if this is like news to put out, but I in some ways welcome piracy,
Yeah.
um, because there's really no replacing the original source,
Right.
even if there's piracy going on. But
Yeah.
I would really, and I think we're starting to see it. So I would invite everyone that's listening or that's new, if you do have creations, hit me up directly or feel free to publish. And we now have like a hub.
Yeah.
It's icrpgcommunitycontent.com. And since we put that up, the sales on all these little projects like Jewel of the Monkey God,
Yeah.
it's just a little quick starter adventure. I think it's like $1 or something. But I talked to JD yesterday, and that has gone up 20-fold in its sales, which it's not like this guy's buying a car on this or
Sure.
something, but it's just his exposure and his reaching people with his ideas has vastly increased since we sort of started consolidating what people create.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
great.
it's really a good time to start creating for ICRPG, not just to blow me up, but I feel like that wave is coming. I hope it's coming. I want it to come because that to me is the funnest part is seeing other people's crazy ideas like the Acid World one or the Wasteland is Not Kind
Yeah.
is a newer one that came out. There was Age of Snakes that came out a few years ago that was huge that Dave Thomavor did, like a whole book. And I think those are just really fun to see how other people kind of run with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very cool. Well, I definitely thank you for taking the time for the interview.
Yeah,
It's
man. Thanks for having me.
yeah, it's been a pleasure. So I'll do the little outro, okay? So again, thanks for watching, and this has been an interview with ICRPG creator Hankerin Ferinale, and goes by many other names. Thanks again for joining us, and for the viewers, thanks for watching, and may your dice always roll with advantage.